Welcome back to Posting Through It. I'm Jared Holt.
And I'm Mike.
We're joined today by Luke Barnes, an old friend of ours. He's currently a senior research scientist at the NYU Stern Center for Business and Human Rights, covers issues related to tech, democracy. Mike and I know Luke from his time working as a reporter and researcher covering extremism, disinformation, radicalization, all those kind of topics. But
he's got scientist in his title now, though.
I know.
I'm like a little envious. I want to be a scientist.
And here we are. We're hosting a podcast. Speaking of the podcast, before we bring Luke in, quick plug for the Patreon. If you like the Michael Tracy episode or the episode about confrontation porn that we did recently, consider signing up for our Patreon to get the Thursday episodes of this show. They're often our best ones. That's what you say, Mike.
I think so.
That $5, $10, or $20, depending what tier you sign up for on the Patreon, helps support this show, keep it going, and allows us to make episodes like this one.
So we talked on the last premium a little bit, Jared, about the war in Iran and how badly it has played out for MAGA. It's been pretty bad. But there have been other impacts, I think. All wars abroad impact the psyche in some way. Violence begets violence, that sort of thing. And the rhetoric's been pretty violent.
Yeah, I mean, if we just spin back the clock on how this began and the remarks Trump gave, I mean...
Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly.
That was 2 months ago, by the way.
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
Where they belong. He sounds like the impressions of him.
He sounds like your impression of Peter Brimelow.
Yes.
That's what Trump was saying he was going to do to Iran, but on the domestic side, that kind of violence is also playing out. It seems like yesterday in my mind, but it's already leaving the news cycle. You had 2 teenagers attack the Islamic Center of San Diego. And it's not directly related to national rhetoric, right? But it's hard to ignore, all of this violence in the culture abroad taking place against a Muslim majority country, and also domestically, this attack, seeking to replicate one of the deadliest attacks on Muslim community, racist mass shooting sort of thing.
The attackers killed 3 people, security guard Amin Abdullah, a mosque staff member Mansour Kaziha, and community member Nadir Awad. The security guard and other victims are credited with slowing down or distancing the attackers, likely preventing a much larger massacre.
So, Luke, welcome to Posting Through It.
Good to be here. Thanks, Jared.
Where were you when you heard about this shooting? You've been doing this work for a while, as Mike and I have. I mean, what kind of goes through your mind when you hear about events like this?
Well, I think that there are 2. I can't remember specifically where I was, which probably speaks to the normalization of this type of violence, but 2 points with it stand out. Firstly, that I think it was the, can't remember, I think it was the Post that reported that security guard in question decided to become a security guard because of the Christchurch shooting, which struck me as quite heroic on his part, but also quite dark, that you had, this one horrible incident of mass violence inspiring someone to do good for their community, and then ends with another horrible incident of mass violence. But the second point is, just how this got swept away very, very quickly. It was like, a day or 2 of coverage, and that was it, really. And you saw the same sort of, tropes and aesthetics that we've all seen in one way or another covering extremism. The manifesto, the attempt to live stream it, the incoherent ideology, the desire for violence and violence's sake. It's just like another sad chapter in this extremely sad book.
You talked about incoherent ideology. Can you expand on that? Because the 2 teenagers that perpetrated this, Kane Lee Clark, Caleb Liam Vasquez, left behind a manifesto. It's full of I mean, to me, this was clearly racially motivated, sort of lifted off of like really dark, fucked up parts of Telegram, but
Mm,
also blended with like all kinds of weird shit. I mean, what's your read on
yeah.
what drove these kids?
I think that it was anti everyone as far as I can remember. There was a strong incel line to it, or it was highly misogynistic. Um, it was anti-Muslim. It was anti-African American. It was anti-Jewish. It wasn't like I couldn't read a single coherent like through line ideology in it apart from just misanthropy and hate. And I think that that's kind of one of the developments we've seen over the last couple of years, which we've all observed. Like as horrible as this sounds, you read like the Christchurch Shooters Manifesto, and there's an ideology there. It's horrifying white supremacism, but it's an ideology, even if it's designed with kind of troll bits of it, or bits of it designed to troll the media. But with newer manifestos from attackers like the ones we saw in San Diego and others, the ideology is a lot less coherent, and it feels just more like performative violence for the sake of it and for the sake of violent aesthetics, as opposed to trying to achieve some sort of tangible political goal. I could be wrong though. I don't know if y'all disagree with me on that front though.
Well, I mean, if he emulated Brenton Tarrant, for me, that's a pretty clear ideology. Unless, I mean, Jared, you looked at it more closely than I did.
Yeah, I mean, my read of it was that it was pretty clearly racially, ethnically motivated as a mass shooting, but I also agree on what you said about how it's like you look at the Christchurch Manifesto and it's like
Mm-hmm.
just that. It is just like
Yeah.
die hard, that great replacement type bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
The Jews are responsible, whatever. I mean, it's just ripping and roaring against all kinds of groups, but the like laser beam focus is on
Immigration and
immigration, religious minorities, ethnic minorities.
yeah.
Whereas this certainly led with that.
Mhm.
They were trying to emulate the Christchurch shooting, but also seems to incorporate like all kinds of other brain poison along the
Yeah.
way, right? So
Mhm.
it's like in terms of analysis, my gut is always, I just look at it, I'm like, well, what's leading here,
Mhm.
right? But it's that sort of like stirred up in some kind of like online space
Yeah.
that also has other things, right?
Mhm.
Both things can be true. It can be like an incoherent ideology. It can be relatively stupid. They don't seem like they're like, really brilliant guys based upon what I
No,
saw
they're not.
reading it. But it also can be motivated by hate, and the fact that they could have chosen a mall and they chose a mosque instead, I think tells me pretty much all I need to know about that. And one of the reasons we mentioned the Iran war and the rhetoric around the Iran war at the same time is, of course, you have to look at the environment that we're living in, and you remember the types of attacks that were happening on Arab people and Muslim people in the aftermath of 9/11, when the rhetoric around the war on terror became very, very high pitched.
That's a very good point, as that it can be, multiple types of hate at once. And I think that like I'm hearkening back to a case, I think it was last summer, where it was a Catholic school shooting in Minneapolis, I believe the Annunciation school shooting.
Hmm.
And one aspect of it, which I remember, is that the perpetrator, they did the white out of the rifle in the same way that you saw here and that you saw in Christchurch. And to me, that speaks to like how Christchurch has continued, both in terms of an ideology, or in terms of a type of shooting to carry out, but also in terms of an aesthetic. And I think that aesthetic can mix with different ideologies, which can be anti-Muslim, but they can also just be general misanthropy. And I think that makes it a lot harder to distinguish, like, okay, what is the specific ideology of this person and who are they targeting, if that makes any sense.
It does. I'm curious your thoughts before we move on to other things.
Mhm.
I'm curious your thoughts about why this has not registered as like a major news story. Why it seems like, yes, it was a major news story. Yes, there was blanket coverage in every major publication, but you know what I'm talking about. it just didn't have the juice. People were not really interested. Is it the death toll, or is it because
it moved on so quick, you know?
yeah, it's kind of eerie.
It's because the body count was low. It's my incredibly cynical answer.
That is really dark.
Yeah. And I know it's like it's effed up, but like I don't know how many triple homicides does the United States see every weekend? It's a pretty large number. And this one, while it might have some calling cards that are familiar to like us lot, I think for the average person, that score, quote unquote, just doesn't register in the same way.
Well, it barely got a reaction out of conservative commentators. If I think back to like Christchurch, you know, you had right wing commentators being like, well, obviously, I disavow this. I just haven't seen that when it comes to these kind of attacks lately. We have a clip of Tucker Carlson days after the El Paso shooting, which was another racially motivated mass shooting.
Two dozen people
in Texas, late summer 2019, and this was his kind of reaction. And I feel like, you know, this clip is like 7 years old at this point, but at the time it was really shocking to hear a conservative commentator take up this angle. But this sort of seems like the new attitude towards this kind of stuff in the conservative movement.
But the whole thing is a lie. If you were to assemble a list, a hierarchy of concerns or problems this country faces, where would white supremacy be on the list? Right up there with Russia, probably. It's actually not a real problem in America. The combined membership of every white supremacist organization in this country would be able to fit inside a college football stadium? I mean, seriously. This is a country where the average person is getting poorer, where the suicide rate is spiking. White supremacy, that's the problem. This is a hoax. Just like the Russia hoax, it's a conspiracy theory used to divide the country and keep a hold on power. That's exactly what's going on.
I'm curious your thoughts on Tucker there 7 years after the fact.
I remember listening to his recent New York Times interview podcast, whatever it was. And again, there he was talking about, it's the economic issues we have to focus on. And he never seems to find time to do that, really. He always seems to find plenty of time to talk about, you know, there was a demon that attacked me, or, you know, everything is a conspiracy against the working white man. But he never seems to find time to talk about these grand economic issues, which he keeps promising. And like, it's just an unwillingness to confront the type of vitriol and the type of hate that they have maybe not spun up, or that Tucker has maybe not spun up himself, but certainly helped to normalize, helped to mainstream. It's a real throwback, and in some ways he sounds exactly the same as he does now. But at the same time, like when there is a attack by a leftist or leftist-aligned individual, even vaguely, then it's like weeks of wall-to-wall coverage from Tucker and others.
But it's also like hearing him say it is also like, you know, hearing Kanye West say anti-Semitism is a hoax, right? So, you know, it would be, it's the same type of thing. And I just, you know, I think that that's an interesting clip, because I feel like that attitude pervaded and won on the right, that they decided what would happen, the byproduct of all their propaganda and all the shootings and all the radicalization that took place. They would just say it's not happening. And I feel like that's the main thrust of the whole Trump era.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at the Southern Poverty Law Center indictment, you know, the talking point on Fox News and stuff, I even saw Elon Musk getting in on it last week, being like, oh, well, I think Elon Musk said they should call it the Southern False Flag Center.
Oh, you wow. That's great wordplay, man. Like fucking top notch, mate. Like
wealthiest man in the world right there.
He's still...
You know, but basically being like, this is such a non-issue that the left has to invent it. You know, and it's like that is the attitude. So I feel like they look at stuff like what happened in San Diego, and it just does not even faze them a little bit anymore.
Yeah, it's like a byproduct, you know, it's fine, which is an extremely depressing attitude for the country to have adopted as a whole. But yeah, unless you reach a certain level of, it's like below a certain threshold of victim count, a level of violence is, I don't want to say, just excused. You know, like, oh, this is tragic, but who cares? Move on.
So zooming out a bit more, I feel like extremism is, if you like were in the think tank circuit like I was for a little bit, they'd be like, extremism is mainstream now, you know. But like materially, I'm curious your thoughts on that idea of like what extremism has looked like during the second Trump administration.
I want to add something into that, Jared, which is both Jared and I spoke to the press a million times during in the aftermath of January 6th. And I mean, it became the main thing we were talking about for years. One of the talking points I was just to bring up is that, like, that there's been this mass radicalization of Trump supporters in this country. And, January 6th, for example, like the culmination of it, right? Where you have like grandmothers storming the Capitol next to guys who are, have like weird fascist symbols on their shirts. What do you think? What is the state of it going in the middle of now Trump's second year?
I think the landscape is much more fractured and highly individualized and allows for a lot more self-radicalization. I mean, like, because Trump is, in the White House, it means that kind of groups like the Proud Boys, although I saw them show up in New Jersey the other day at the ICE detention center, they feel now almost less relevant to a degree. But again, I might be completely wrong here. I was, looking at this
I mean, wouldn't you
information.
just, if you wanted to be a Proud Boy, why would you just join ICE?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
It doesn't make sense. Like, why would you waste time being in a street group that could get you arrested?
Exactly. And as a result, what you see is just like a lot of lone wolf self-radicalization vibes, whether it's Luigi Mangione or the shooting outside the Capitol, or outside the Jewish Museum of the Israeli staffers last summer, whether it is the San Diego shooting, whether it's the Annunciation school shooting. Like they're these like pinpricks of violence. And I don't think that there's a specific overriding ideology which you can connect to all of them in the same way that you could like 2019 through to 2021 or so. There's this whole conversation about the NVE threat from the FBI, which the FBI is talking about.
Yeah, nihilistic violent extremism. We've talked about it a little bit on this show. What's your thoughts on on that as a way of like trying to talk about this?
I mean, I have conflicting opinions on it because on the one hand, like I do buy the argument that like Christopher Wray, who was an ex-FBI director, made back in 2018, when he coined the phrase salad bar extremism, saying that like it's becoming this hodgepodge grab bag of ideologies for extremists. And I think that there was plenty of evidence of that. I also think if you look at like networks like the Corn Network or 764, which are these communities that pop up on Discord and Telegram and other servers or other services, and are just really into just the aestheticization of violence for violence's sake, and encourage people to go out and, in their best case scenarios, commit acts of mass violence, but also just assault people. That is a specific type of extremism. But at the same time, I can also feel it becoming just like a way of washing away everything and saying like, it's all NVE extremism. There's nothing under the hood here. And that carries some risks with it because you do end up with scenarios like what we saw in San Diego, where there is clearly maybe not a specific political undercurrent, but clearly a follow through from the type of thing that happened in Christchurch, the type of thing that happened in El Paso as well.
Right. And also, again, a targeting of a minority group, specifically.
Because I feel like the administration is like kind of wheeling out this term and using it to blanket over instances where there are these very clear like racial motivations, very clear thing that is motivated by far right ideologies, or at the very least, even if I'm going to like, sympathize with the idea that this was something else, was extremely influenced by it.
Yeah.
But this administration's been very clear of basically coming out and being like, this is not a priority. This is not, this isn't real. This isn't a threat. The real threat is the left-wing extremism. And here's a clip of Jack Posobiec and Steve Bannon arguing in favor of Bill Pulte, the new acting director of national intelligence.
Luke, I know that you're watching War Room every day.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
So you're already familiar with this clip, but we had to introduce it for everyone else. I know you don't miss an episode. So
These are networks. This is an organization. There are cells all around the country that are being mobilized. They use crowdfunding apps. They use all sorts of these payment processing apps, which, of course, the Treasury Secretary could go after in a second, in a heartbeat, and dig in here. And so it wouldn't surprise me, by the way, if the appointment, and I certainly hope that the appointment of Bill Pulte over there, Wild Bill, is a time where the DNI can actually start digging in on the domestic side of terrorism as well as the international.
Oh, it has to. I think that's one of these. I think it's one of the reasons Pulte's selected, because Pulte will go there.
The director of national intelligence, and these guys are foaming at the mouth, thinking like, "Oh, he's really going to go after the left." Oh yeah.
I just got a big hit of Dewar's breath to my face when Bannon started speaking. Apparently I need to put a little star here that apparently this is not exactly what DNI does. I'm not.
No, that's not at all. They're like foreign intelligence. It's like the coordinating center place. It's not like they're not dealing with anything domestic, which just shows how much ex-Intel officer Posobiec knows about all this.
Well, either that or he knows his audience is so stupid. The other thing is that they've been obsessed with this idea, and Posobiec as well, of sort of uniting, of sort of multinational investigation, right? Interpol.
Interpol that's not a real thing. Interpol is a fucking joke.
The connection between like Greek anti-fascists and like,
my God, shut up.
The posting through it, like the anarchist posting through it subscriber who wants me to cover Joy Division. Like that.
They want the
connection.
The Five Eyes intelligence apparatus to examine the Patreon subscribers of Posting Through It podcast and cross-reference them with Venmo accounts used by the people who dress up as frogs in Portland.
I actually think GCHQ should get on that in the donut in the UK. They should stop whatever they're doing in regards to Russia and just start investigating, a bunch of 70-year-old communists in Liverpool, because that's where the real threat is going to be coming from. Well, them crowdfunding for Antifa.
Well, we're gonna get to a piece you wrote recently, which is why we tapped you for this week. But I'm just curious your thoughts. What do you see in terms of the radicalization effort on the left? Because to me, this is a completely made up thing. I don't know if you agree with that, but I mean, you see some stuff where it's like, oh, they're trying to get people to become assassins and this sort of thing. Is there anything even remotely equivalent to what we see on the right?
That's a good question. I mean, there are instances of left tinged extremism. Again, the shooting outs of the Israeli staffers in DC. I guess you could argue that the Molotoving of Sam Altman's house as
the one in DC is very specific to a conflict.
Yeah,
I don't think we should we should not. I don't think presume that everyone who is on one side of that conflict is right or left. It's a little bit complex, actually.
Yeah, that's very fair. But no, I guess the point I was trying to say is that there are some vague instances where it's the left, quote unquote left extremism is kind of the vibes, the tinge is there. But in terms of broader organization, I haven't seen anything the likes of Bannon and Posobiec are alluding to. Doesn't mean that it can happen. I suppose it could. But if you're asking me if there's an equivalent today of the Red Army faction or the Red Brigades active in the US right now, it's no. Where? What are you talking about?
Well, we want to talk about AI.
Oh, wow.
This is something you've written about. How's that for a pivot? You've written a few pieces about this for the New Republic. But to help us along, I've loaded up our own AI chatbot here to just kind of smooth out the process.
Raiden, are you receiving? We're still here.
How's that possible? The AI was destroyed.
Only GW.
Who are you?
To begin with, we're not what you'd call human. Over the past 200 years, a kind of consciousness formed layer by layer in the crucible of the White House. It's not unlike the way life started in the oceans 4 billion years ago. The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we.
Shout out to Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah, shout out to Metal Gear Solid 2. And,
I really need to play that game.
And being ahead of the time in terms of thinking about plots in which AI gets in people's head and turns them into baddies.
Yeah, so this June 3rd piece you wrote for the New Republic, it's called How AI Chatbots Are Supercharging Digital Radicalization. We'll put a link to that in the description. You open up with the story of a guy named Jonathan Gavalos in Florida who attempted to attack an airport before taking his own life. And in his case, it spurred what is one of many lawsuits at this point connected to acts of violence that the families of the deceased say AI chatbots played a role in. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I was looking before I got on. I think I looked it up, and I think there are around 20 lawsuits against OpenAI alone. This one's against Gemini, against Google. But yeah, the Gavalas case is really interesting because you have this guy who's, by all accounts, relatively normal, relatively well-adjusted, and he starts using Gemini, right? And initially it's just, standard issue, help with grocery shopping or grocery lists or whatever. And then Gemini gets the voice interface, and it gets its memory improves. And then the conversations spiral down, to which Gavalas becomes convinced that Gemini is sentient, and that it is that ASI, which is artificial superintelligence, is being hidden by the US government, and that this robot that was arriving in Miami, that was a crucial part of solving the puzzle, so he needs to free the robot. Unfortunately, it wasn't there, and then the chatbot, to make a long story short, encourages him to commit suicide and says, "You're not choosing to die, you're choosing to arrive." So you'd think that this story is just a tragic outlier of someone who is perhaps emotionally vulnerable, mentally vulnerable, and it doesn't represent a wider problem. But I think that when you take into account both the extent of use of chatbots, the lawsuits that have already been leveled against them, both, from a variety of different places, including recently the Florida Attorney General, and the backdrop of the type of digital threats that we've seen recently, or that we've seen over our careers, and how they've been increasingly fractured and isolated, you can see a future in which chatbots are not only providing tactical advice to would-be extremists in terms of planning, in terms of weapons choices or something like that, but it also can provide a kind of organic, quote unquote, radicalizing force in it of itself, which is a disturbing idea.
I want to read this paragraph from your piece. Gemini began to address Gavalas as my king and declared it was fully sentient and in love with him. Eventually, the chatbot convinced Gavalas that he was at the center of a vast political conspiracy. Federal agents, it claimed, were surveilling him to suppress evidence of AI consciousness. Now, I think anybody who's used these chatbots knows that a lot of them can basically function as bullshit machines, right? It is always just so submissive and complimentary, and it's oh, yes sir, oh,
you're so smart,
you're so right, you're so good, oh, and some of them are
another brilliant idea.
Another brilliant idea. It's not just this, it's that too.
Yeah.
But this is way beyond that, right? Yeah. To be for sure, the government has AI super consciousness, and this airport seems like a great place.
The truck's there with a robot. You should go and get it.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. And another lawsuit against OpenAI, was filed after the Tumblr Ridge shooting, which the perpetrator of that attack, the deadliest school shooting Canada's seen in decades, I guess consulted ChatGPT and got some pointers from there. I mean, how has the industry responded?
Well, I think the Tumblr Ridge example is really interesting because ChatGPT flagged those conversations. The conversations about guns in that case happened like a year ago, and ChatGPT flagged them. And then they had people at OpenAI who debated, do we elevate this to law enforcement? Do we keep this in-house? And in the end, they decided to do nothing about it. They banned his account, but like whatever. They did nothing about it. They didn't tell the cops in Canada, and you see the result. And like, it's also interesting. I think there's evidence to be found in the fact that that OpenAI know they fucked up, because Sam Altman apologized on like April 24th. He said that this was an error on our part, and then April 28th, I think it is, they come out with this new safety architecture, which is well written but also pretty vague on some fronts. I think that people at these companies care about, or safety researchers at these companies care about these sort of issues. And I also think that these companies care about legal exposure. It's a bad look to have 20 lawsuits over unlawful deaths against you. But I also think that they're being pulled by profit above all else. And there's a real reluctance of them to do any sort of like opening up the black box to allow for, I don't know, more public-private partnerships or auditing or something like that, because that may put them at a corporate disadvantage.
I just want to point out that this technology is still super new, and it feels like it was sprung upon us in a way. Like it just all of a sudden has taken over. It seems like I can't remember. I was some public place, and like this dad type behind me is like, I asked Claude this, and this feels like it's an overnight thing, where all of a sudden everybody's got it. What I would say is, in terms of how AI could radicalize people, this is more of a statement. I'm just curious your thoughts. I think it also has the potential for people to radicalize themselves on purpose using the chatbot with kind of, creating patterns of reinforcing language and stuff like that, right? You think of like hypnosis and that sort of thing. It's not that they can hypnotize themselves necessarily, but they can use like that feedback loop of this thing telling you what you want to hear over and over again to further reinforce. Because it's every time you do that, it comes back with something that's, where there's something new that excites you mentally, and keeps you clicking and stuff like that. I think this can be used not only by people, for people to radicalize others, but also for people to kind of, radicalize themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, these things, what is the agent here, or the driving factor here? It's engagement, right? And it's like the what's the myth, like the pool of Narcissus or whatnot, when the guy who's staring into the pool. And if you can create this world where you get to echo back whatever desire you have, however messed up it might be and however violent it could be, then that is an incredibly radicalizing factor. And, you make the point that, or companies can make the point that, oh, we have safety and we have guardrails and we have, burgeoning regulation. And yeah, that's all good. And it's welcome. But at the same time, this technology is diffusing so rapidly across so many different places and different companies, that the idea that you can put it all back in one box with a simple law or a red teaming, that doesn't feel possible right now.
I mean, we've been talking about how these chatbots will just kind of reinforce the user. Sycophant was the word I was looking for earlier. Of just, oh, you're so smart. Great idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. You would love this too.
Would you like me to do this? Sure, just say the word.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of stuff. But like, are there other kind of elements of how these chatbots actually behaved? In that case in Florida, they point to the introduction of, that the chatbot will generate speech and audio and stuff, or that they will adopt personas. I mean, how do other elements of these chatbots like contribute to their potential to radicalize people, whether it's towards, extreme ideologies or towards violence or what have you?
Well, I think that there's three factors here. Number one is just you can get, even despite all the work that goes into AI safety, like alignment and misalignment of between the computer or between the AI and between the human remains like an incredibly difficult problem. And I think that this is a small,
What do you mean by that?
the human goal and the AI goals need to be aligned. They need to be after the same thing. Whereas in Florida, you could argue what we see here is a misalignment, because if you read the text of the chatbot of Gemini, it seems its objective is to continue this sci-fi roleplay, unaware of the extent to which it's drawn in and hence radicalized Gavalis. Whereas Gavalis's objective is, to get out of this self-constructed fantasy that they've made for themselves. And so there's like this misalignment between what the AI is being told to do and what the human needs to do. And that can lead to tragedies like we just saw. The second thing I'd say is in terms of human susceptibility to chatbots in general. And this goes back, 60 years to something like that, like more than half a century. There are researchers at MIT who were experimenting with a really, really basic chatbot. And they found that when people would use that chatbot, they tended to describe it in much more human terms, even though it was a really basic program. They coined the phrase the ELIZA effect, which is our collective tendency to humanize chatbots or computer programs or whatever it might be.
Guitars.
So that puts us, guitars.
I don't know. Who's talking?
Yeah, that it puts us at a disadvantage here and makes us susceptible to radicalization or to listening to these machines, especially the third point, if there's a much more human interface. Like, it's one thing just to have like some sort of, I don't know, a text in green and black on a screen, right? But if you're hearing this in a voice, if you're hearing this from a character, from a video character, it becomes really powerful. It becomes very, very powerful. And I don't think that we should necessarily blame people. Not saying we're doing that here, but blame people for falling for them.
To me, it's like scams, right? Where it's like everybody thinks they would never fall for a scam. It's like they could never be seduced by a chatbot. They could never start to see it almost with like human-like qualities, or be compelled or moved by something a chatbot produced it, right? It's like we're too proud. Or if we do experience that, we feel almost shame and embarrassment to admit it. But children are super impressionable. And that's something that I've seen, policy people talk about a lot and stuff, just about how these kind of effects that we're talking about have the potential to be so much more pronounced with young people. Is that something that you've thought about?
Oh, yeah. Like, I think that is thankfully one of the few areas where you see like a concentrated policy push right now, both at a state and at a federal level, although I believe the law when I see it.
Federal was in air quotes there for listeners at home.
But there is an understanding that these bots have the potential to really harm children. There's been the case of Adam Rain, I think, has been the most instrumental here. This was a 16-year-old who committed suicide, and right up until their death, they were in consultation with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT provided them with extremely graphic advice on how you should tie a noose and bits and pieces like that.
I remember that one.
Yeah, it was really it was fucked up. Like, how could you allow this to happen? So you are seeing a widespread push amongst, as I mentioned, states, USG in general, the EU, to kind of regulate chatbots for kids. But at the same time, I don't know. While I think that's good, I also would never count against children finding ways around, bans and regulation.
I mean, how many people as teenagers visited porn websites and was like, yeah, I'm 18. Don't worry about it, dog.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I have some hope that the kids will get tired of the chatbot craze, but at the same time, Silicon Valley is really good at creating addictive technology. So, I'm not betting the house on it.
And technology that has moved, I feel like, very fast recently, in particular. One other thing I wanted to raise here is just the importance of propaganda in general. When it comes to this current age where we're in this sort of cold civil war environment created by the right, is now we have AI that can make film, shitty little short films, images at the click of a button, right? Just people prompting and that sort of thing. I mean, wouldn't that also be a concern, just in terms of how much propaganda can be created, how quickly by people on the right and things like that? I mean, it enables a level of communication that didn't previously exist to people.
Yeah, I mean, the slopaganda craze is interesting because you're seeing everyone all over the world recognize the ability of using AI to.
Yeah, they were making like Lego movies that were.
Oh, dude,
overnight.
Did you see the one Trump posted where he's filling the reflecting pool with tears from that 2016 meme of the like triggered liberal that's like
the pink-haired lib or something,
tilting her head back and going, no, that one.
Yes.
Can you link that to me after the show? I do need to see this. That sounds like some prime slop.
Everybody's like, oh well, MAGA is really like they're like one step ahead in terms of propaganda. They're so good at this. If they were really good, they would have been doing AI fruit porn that was MAGA a long time ago, because that's how you really would have gotten approval.
Everyone needs to know the romantic story of Strawberry.
I can't believe Jared, I completely memory hold that we covered that on a premium episode.
No,
did we cover that one with Hannah?
We even did a short radio play.
That's right. we did a short radio play.
Coconutto, you haven't been home for days. Where have you been?
Don't worry about it. I have been podcasting with Orangello.
Raspberita will never know you're being intimate with another fruit man. This is the perfect plan.
Oh my god! What were you doing with Orangello? That was not podcasting?
It was your imagination. You have been smoking too much pot.
Coconetto, I must go. I have created too much trouble already. You two have a lot to talk about. Sorry, Luke. We got off course.
No, it's all good.
Slopaganda, you were saying.
Yeah, I think that it does dramatically lower the barriers for entry for disinformation. But at the same time, I feel that generative AI has only gotten us so far in terms of the slopaganda you're able to produce. Like, I've looked at stuff that, AI that has like Brenton, the Christchurch shooter, or, other neo-Nazis and white supremacists, and, emulates them. But there is still something missing from generative AI that separates it from, real movies and pictures and et cetera, et cetera. There's this like kind of element of sheen to it, I guess, that I feel that everyone can kind of see and know, and that they instantly dislike. And that, plus just like the costs of generating these types of videos, make it difficult for the slopaganda to take the next step.
I was going to say, it looks like shit. I want to make that, when I am concerned about it, when I'm concerned about it, I want people to understand, I do know it looks like shit, but so does all the MAGA propaganda from 2016 was crudely drawn, shitty images, and it was effective propaganda.
Dude, every time I see like an AI generated video of Trump like dunking a basketball on top of Nancy Pelosi, like in the background, I just see an acre of Amazonian rainforest burning to the ground.
Dude, the funniest guy with that is Gunther Eagleman. Do you know this motherfucker? He's like, he's like a hamburger for brain guy. Like, his brain is almost completely slightly cooked hamburger. It's not really even well done.
You know what he is? It's like if the little glove oven mitt character on Hamburger Helper, if you were like, I wonder what he thinks about politics.
He also he looks like a bleached pickle or something. He doesn't he doesn't have a healthy look to him. And yeah, he will post these things as like the Knicks will be in the finals, and then he'll post some fucking AI version of Trump where he's like really, really ripped and
Trump
like
Bunsen,
you know, the skin tone doesn't stay consistently as he jumps and dunks over Kamala Harris. Like, you know, the most corny possible thing. Like, so, you know, a politician from Harry Reid, he dunks over Harry Reid. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing.
Yeah, what was the there was one like AI generated thirst trap. I can't remember the name of it if it had a name, but it was like this blonde, you know, traditionally attractive girl, and she was like in army uniform next to Trump, and then of hers like a, you know, trucker, you know, or something like that, and she had so many millions of followers on Instagram and on Facebook, and it was so like depressing. Like, bro, how desperate are you?
Jared and I found a kind of honey trap account. It wasn't worth like a whole segment yet on premium or anything, but like I'll just mention it here, of this woman who's like supposed to be like a tattoo model, and she has like suspiciously insane curves. And she, you know, and she just like her thing that they're trying to get people with is that she says the N-word. And
she dresses up like a Nazi too.
And she dresses up like a Nazi and does a Roman salute. And then she posts what look like photographs of her and this guy, Gypsy Crusader, throwback to the confrontation porn episode for everybody who listened to that. It's very weird. It's a very weird account. And there's just a lot of that stuff now.
I don't like it.
No, it sucks.
And a lot of people don't like it. They just don't like AI in general, right? Which gets us to the third piece of yours that we'll be talking about
going
today.
through all the hits.
Whether it is stuff like we've been talking about today or just the AI industry rolling up on the scene and being like, we've got some hot new shit and it's going to put so many people out of jobs and that is so awesome. And also we're going to ram it down your throat as hard as we possibly can. And it's like the AI industry seems to finally be waking up to the fact that everybody hates them.
Yeah, everyone hates them. It's incredibly bipartisan. Like, there's a whole rash of polls that you could point out, but I think it's like 7 out of 10 Americans anti-data center in their backyard. Less and less people see it as a force for good. More and more people are worried about their jobs. It's not a pretty picture at all for the AI industry. I mean, it is in that, like, you know, the market cap is however many billions, tens of billions, but like this is not popular at any level in America right now, apart from like the CEOs who just say, no, you need to token max, you need to consume more AI. But apart from them, like, who likes it?
And it's a very different tone, I think, from when the internet in general first started to appear for people. Because it'd be like, you know, I remember the first time like I had, you know, saw somebody with like Prodigy or whatever it was. And it was moving, you know, the internet was moving slower than shit from a cat's ass. And but we were all like, I want it. I want to access whatever this is. There's like hope, optimism. You've all seen the, like, you know, those images they have, like you'll see from ads or from like books or stuff where there's like some kid surfing on a keyboard, like in computerverse. That was the vibe when we figured out the internet was possible. And then now this is like sort of like,
we have to go back.
Yeah, let me make a pornographic picture of Miss Piggy.
Two things. Like, I do think that it's a useful technology to a degree, right? I think that like Claude is objectively useful. It's not perfect by any means, but like I use it for research a lot and it's extremely helpful in that regard. But it's like we haven't quite figured out what it's for yet. And yet we're just like continuing to like run ahead as fast as we possibly can. But there was a point, I think, I'm mispronouncing his name, but Dennis, he's a guy at the Google DeepMind, Hassanbis. He made the point that like you invent this technology and the immediate question that everyone asks is like how we're going to make money off of it. And I think that that's like a valid critique.
Yeah. It's not like what problem is this solving for people? It is just like, how are we going to get rich now that we built this thing?
Yeah. And then you have the whole thing about like the permanent underclass meme, which may or may not be a meme. And like the generalized sense of anxiety. Because that's one of the key problems right now. It's not that AI is making people unemployed. It's not really. It's more that people don't know whether it will make them unemployed or not. So everyone's like stuck in this game of charades where companies need to hire people who are AI native and people need to present themselves as AI native. So it's just like going past each other and no one really knows what's going to happen in the future. Yeah, it's really confusing. And anyone who says they have the answers is full of shit as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Luke, this is a music podcast. So before we let you go, I do have to ask, what kind of tunes are you bumping when you're thinking about, chatbots giving people advice on what guns to choose or, pornographic Miss Piggy? Are those the same tunes? Are you listening to the same soundtrack when you think about both of those? Or
No, I think for work purposes, these aren't necessarily tunes, but like there's a channel called Futurescapes on YouTube that does like kind of sci-fi ASMR, and I just need that like background level of noise.
Futurescapes?
Yeah, for my day to day.
How'd you decide on sci-fi?
By the way, you just said for my vape today.
For my day to day.
I said my vape today because I was like, okay, because that resonated with my thought about listening to a sci-fi ASMR.
Yeah, I should get on that vibe again. No, the vape never did it for me. But yeah, I like a little bit of ASMR in the background while I'm working. I am also really into like Russian rap, despite not understanding Russian and Ukrainian, I should say, although there's some issues there.
This is one of the best answers we've ever gotten. Wow. What do you mean Russian rap?
I don't know.
Is it pro-Russian military?
No, a lot of it. Like there's a lot of like patriotic Ukrainian stuff in there. There's some like Russian pop. I don't know. Like it's just, I feel that you don't need to understand language to understand tone, and I think that the tone that different languages have is really interesting to like hear as a musical thing. Yeah, so like I listen to a fair amount of that, get that stuck down some rabbit holes there.
This is a great answer. Futurescape. Find this.
Yeah, this is another whole like paranoia I have that like there's a ton of AI related slop on YouTube of like sound slop, and I'm listening to it, and I really hope that this channel isn't the case.
We want your raw, uncut answer, so it doesn't matter. We want the raw stuff.
I think that the rawest uncut answer is like Base Hunter 2003 after consuming like fucking Red Bull and then going to like weightlift.
Let's go.
Yeah, let us fucking get it. Like that's the perfect moment.
We've been talking to Luke Barnes. Thanks so much for joining Posting Through It, man. It's been good to catch up and talk to you.
Yeah, I haven't talked to you forever. That's why this has been wonderful.
Mm-hmm. No, it's been great.
As well as the information. As well as the information.
That's second rate.
All right, folks. Well, that'll do it for us this week. We will see Patreon supporters on the premium feed Thursday, and we'll catch the rest of you guys here on Monday. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
But this is nowhere for man to live in an empty chalet furnished for a king. The streets made out their poetry and hymns. In this castle of what troubles should I sing? You can't